right, good morning. Back for another church service. Winners Wisdom Ghetto Gospel. Start out with the mission statement as usual. We shall live in love and truth, spreading truth while accepting others as they are. Accept what is and truthfully work towards what can be. Understanding everyone has good and evil in them. Judge no one. Therefore, set aside differences and work as one for the purpose of God. And God is all, and all is one. Mission verse, 1 Corinthians 13:4-7. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. It always trusts, always hopes, and always preserves. And we have the purpose of winning wisdom, to provide wisdom from a spiritual perspective, not religious based. Teach people to become holy, becoming the best version of themselves, becoming whole within themselves. We all have good and evil, which makes us equal to each other. Every person living is divine. So who would want be to tell someone the direction they should go? Divinity makes us different in all of God. There will only be one you, so make the best of it. Winning wisdom will give you the blueprint to help you become the best you. It will be up to you to fill in the blanks of the blueprint. Just as I am a God, you are also a God or a goddess. Above all else, we should all love one another. Life is a team sport, and we are one. I'm gonna do something different today. I'm gonna start off, usually I start off with like a rap song or R&B song or a song of that nature. But the title of the message, I'm gonna do something different, and that's the title of the message. And it took me in another direction, which is the higher you go, which is spiritually within yourself, the more control you relinquish. I don't know if the camera can see this right over there. The closer we get to God, the less control we have. And I couldn't find no song to go to that because I think the higher we are, the less noise it is, the less we have people inside our heads determining what we do and what we shall do. So for a couple of minutes, I'm gonna play some meditation music, and I want us to just free our mind from thinking, problems, whatever we're going through, and just vibe like you're at the ocean on the beach. And I'm gonna play that for a couple of minutes before I get into the message.
Can get anything on Uber Eats? You're probably wondering, can I eat anything I get delivered?
to free your mind. Before I get started, I want to send my condolences to the young woman who got killed at ecstasy Friday night by the security guards. From the video, it seemed like they was telling the women to get out, harassing them, pushing them out. Not really, they was, in my opinion, being too extra with the women and not allowing them to leave. And they was all behind the car when the women were leaving. They was doing too much, in my opinion, to bother the women from leaving the club. Rest in peace to Shalonda, I believe that's her name. To send my condolences to her family and friends. And I hope that situation gets justified. And whoever needs to be corrected, I hope that they be corrected. Whether it's ecstasy, the strip club, the security guards, or whoever, and however it happened. All right, now to the message. The higher you go, the more control you relinquish. So, this kind of remind me of on being on a plane, and actually, my uncle that I was on the plane with here today, so he probably can feel what I'm saying. The higher the plane go in the air, the anxiety and the fear we get from the plane taking off and being in the air with the plane is we don't have no control. The only thing we really do have while we in the air is faith. That's all we have to control us on that plane while we're flying, while we're traveling to our destination or trying to get to where we're trying to go. All we have is faith. The higher we are off the ground, the more you have to rely on something outside of yourself. You have to rely on more of a higher power. And that goes into life on a daily basis. So when we're going through whatever we're going through, losing our ego, the higher we lose our ego, the more we have to just rely on God, our pride, fear of loss, whatever we have lost, the pain that we can't do nothing about it and things like that, we have to just rely on a higher power. We have to let go. That reminds me of a verse, Matthew 18, 3-5, where in Matthew 18, 3-5, it says, and he said, truly I tell you, this is what Jesus was telling his disciples, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. And the thing about that is, it's like, when we're babies and our mothers are holding us, our fathers are holding us, when we're kids, we putting all our dependence on something outside of ourselves. We're not dependent on ourselves. Now when we get a little older, we start trying to be more in control of our life. And that's where, adults come in there and the pain being an adult causes because we're putting a lot of control on ourselves. And in that verse, Jesus is telling them, like, you're not able, no one is able to see God or feel God until they let go, until we just put whatever it is we're going through on Him. If we're holding a little baby in our arms, we're in control of whether that baby falls or not and hits the ground. We're in control of that, and that baby is not doing anything to go against that. When kids are in trouble, they run to their parents. They're not putting the pressure on themselves to change the situation or change the outcome or change what's going on. They're putting it on their parents at that point in time. So Jesus was telling them, like, unless you put everything you feel and everything you're going through on God, you will not feel his presence. You will not feel at peace. You will not feel at ease until you give him everything you're going through. Because he is what holds us up. Just like us as parents, we hold our children up, we hold our babies up, we hold them up. They're independent of us. And they're fine with that. They're cool with that. Now us, when we get older, just by human nature, we try to seek control of our life in many different ways. Many different ways. We try to seek control of our life. You know, we try to rely on our own power. You know, I thought about this too. You know, when we rely on our own power, I think in a spiritual aspect, not financially, it's kind of like living paycheck to paycheck, because it's like you only relying on what you can do to get what you need done. You know, and when we do that, we can only go so far. When we rely on ourselves, we can only go so far. We can only do so much. You know, because there are things outside of our control that are higher than us, that God wants us to seek and wants us to gain. You know, the same as being on the plane. It's outside of our control. The higher we go in that sky. And all we have at that moment is God. We don't have none of our abilities. Nothing we have can help us when we on that plane. Nothing. No resources, not our job, not our family, friends, loved ones, nothing. None of our power, or none of that can help us when we're in that sky. You know, and I refer that to the same as being closer to God. None of that can help us. You know, we have to let go of these things and put it all in a higher power's hands and know that we're not in control. We're not in control. And I think another topic I can touch on that'll help that is, I've been reading this book called The Power of Now, and it's basically about being present in the moment of be in that moment, whatever that moment is, live in that moment. Don't really focus on time, because time can cause you to live in the past and time can cause you to go too far in the future. Focus on that present moment. Like, embrace all of that moment. That's part of why I played the meditation music. Because when we tend to go on vacation and things like that, we're living in that present moment, forgetting everything else. We just hear, wherever we at, we just hear the waves of the ocean, or wherever we may be, we just forget everything else. We don't hear nothing else. We're not trying to think about nothing else. We're not trying to worry about nothing else. We're not focused on nothing else. We take all that pressure off of it, and we're at peace. We're mentally and spiritually, we're at a higher place where nothing can bother us. You know what I mean? When we on vacation and when we take ourselves away from this world and from the things of this world that we got to deal with, that we see every day, that we see around us every day, the problems, the bills, you know, the circumstances, the responsibilities. We get away from these things, which we should. So that book, The Power of Now, is about living in that moment. You know, not forgetting that you have a problem, situation that still exists, but being present in that moment. You know, because the thing about what that book was saying, and the thing about life is, a lot of us, we go through things more than we have to go through it. We go through it before it happens, when it happens, after it happens, instead of just going through it when it happens and just going through it at that present moment. We go through it multiple times. And I can say I'm a victim of that, of trying to predict what my life is going to bring tomorrow or next week, and trying to control the future. You know what I mean? Now, I'm human, so there's things I'm gonna do. There's things everybody gonna do. All of us is gonna do. But I can say I do that. Try to control the future and try to premeditate what's going to happen tomorrow and how I can stop it from happening. And I'm putting a lot of weight on myself by trying to control what's going to happen instead of just going through it when it does happen. You see, we gonna feel fear, sadness, ego, pride. We gonna feel all these things, but just feel them. We need to just feel them in that moment. You know, be present in that moment to help us make the right decision. Because when you're at ease and your mind is not racing and going on and on and on and on about problems, about what you should do and things like that, you can kind of make the right decision because you have that spirit inside of you that's going to tell you what to do. You know, if you're aware and you're present in that moment, and just be present in that moment. Not worried about the outside noise, not worried about what's going on over here, and just be present in that moment and deal with things as they come instead of dealing with them before they even get here. You know, or dealing with them after they get here. You know, because things can happen in our life also for us in the future tense to where, you know, we're trying to fix it, or we living in regret and things like that, and we have to let that go, you know, and be in the moment, like feel all that pain, like let it, because pain is going to come through us, but it's also going to leave us, you know, but we have to be aware of the moment to know what is what and what's really going on at that present moment to allow it to flow through us and us not to hold on to it more than we should. You know, it's we have to separate from the physical world, you know, because another aspect other than just what we go through in life is like letting go of things we don't want to do no more. You know, old habits we want to break, old thought patterns, you know, when we're leveling up in life and we're going to different places in life and we're working on becoming a better person in life, we have to let go. We have to let go of certain things we see, certain things we hold on to, certain things we do, and all these things. You know, for example, I noticed the more I pick up my phone and you know, scroll on Instagram or scroll on Facebook, I'm trying to be in control because it's being on social media is like a thing of worry because you want to know what's going on. You don't want to think you missing something. You know, you don't want to feel left out. You know, you don't want to feel like, oh, if I would have seen this or seen that, it would have changed my day. You know what I mean? Instead of putting your faith in God, you're holding on to social media. You're holding on to habits. You know what I mean? You're holding on to thought patterns. You're holding on to fear. You're holding on to these things because you're scared to elevate. You know, that fear that the plane give us is the same fear people have in life because they're scared that they fear elevating, they fear letting go of whatever it is they're holding on to. You know, because they want to, part of us wants to be comfortable. We don't want to be uncomfortable. You know, and the only thing that holds us up is faith. Galatians 2:20 is a verse I seen, I believe it was yesterday. I seen it. On my phone. And it says, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by the faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. When we put our dependence, on God, it's no longer us who live. It's no longer us who is in control or does what we want to do. It's no longer us. When you're living on that high plane with God, you're putting it all in His control, and whatever He tells you to do, you just do it with no questions, no ease. That's kind of like the meditation music, when you're just listening to the noises of nature. You can be more aware of when God is telling you to do something, and you can have more faith in just doing that because you're living in the moment. You're not focused on the fear of doing whatever it is God tells you to do. You're not focused on what you're losing. You know what I mean? You're not focused on your own selfish ambition, your own pride, your own ego. You're not focused on none of these fleshly things, control, or none of that. When you're being in the power of now, and you're letting go of all the external things of the world that's drawn for your attention to hold you down. You know what I mean? Social media holds you down. You don't want to let go of not knowing. You don't want to let go of comparing yourself to people. You don't want to let go of this attention of things you see on social media that takes you away from your life, that takes you away from things you need to be working on, you need to change. So you focus your attention on things that have no meaning to stay at the same position because you fear the heights of where the plane that God can take you or where you can go, where God can take you. Let me write these verses down that I've been saying. So I know one I said, Galatians 2:20. Live by faith. What other one I said? I don't think I ever said anything. And back to what I was saying, like living within our own power, like living paycheck to paycheck, because as one human being, no matter who you are, you can only do so much yourself. You can only do so much yourself. And when we're focusing on ourselves, yes, we can only do so much. We're putting all this on ourselves to do and to take and to have control over in our life. We're putting all these things on ourselves, and it causes us to spiritually live paycheck to paycheck on the inside, because we always end up broke when we put all the control on ourselves to fix everybody and everything. We always end up spiritually broke because we don't have enough to give everybody and give ourselves. But if we let go and follow the spirit and not our emotions, we would just do what we can logically do, what God tells us to do, and we'll leave the rest in His control. We'll have our faith on that plane of being high with Him. We'll leave it in His control. We won't try to come down out the sky to fix it or get anxious, or try to do it ourselves. We'll leave it in His control. It's only so much we can do as a person. I remember when I used to get paid sometimes, I would try to pay everything with that one paycheck. And then the next paycheck, I would do the same thing. And then the next paycheck, I would do the same thing. And it's like, it wasn't the money or the amount of money I was getting paid. It was how I was handling the money. I didn't have faith. I was focused on myself and my ego of saying, yeah, all my bills paid. Yeah, I did this earlier than everybody else, or I got this handled, I got this done, I fixed this, I don't have to worry about this no more. It was that ease I can give my ego by saying, hey, if you got it, you might as well spend it. That's my ego. I want to be in control again. And it caused me to live paycheck by paycheck because I was focused on myself. When you're focused on yourself, you can only go so high. You can only go so high. You know, and that's for anyone, anything, any walk of life, any amount of money that someone has. You can only go so high when you're focused on yourself. It's never actually what you have, it's how you handle it. If you're listening, obeying your spirit, and being in tune, and not focus on the things you cannot control, you can be on that spiritual high with God. You can be in heaven with God because it's Him. We His little children, He's holding us up. He's holding us up. When a baby is getting held up, or when a child knows they're a child, they don't depend on themselves. You know, when God is holding us up, we're like little children who's trying to get away. As if we can walk on our own, as if we can take care of our own self all the time, all day. And that's where we go wrong at, instead of just letting Him hold us and do what we can do and letting Him do the rest. You know, you cannot prosper in life on the inside internally until you let go of some things. You know, because the more weight you have on you, that's holding you down, you can't fly. You can't reach those goals. You can't reach that peace of mind that you're seeking. You know, because you have all these things holding you down. You know, and like I say once again, it's us. It's us. It's our own mental, our own ego, our selfish ambition, our arrogance, our own fear of not letting these things go. Because we so constantly fear letting them go and knowing that we're not in control. And it's like we feel, I guess I can say we feel weak, because it's like, okay, now I let these things go, now what? We don't know what to do when we let things go. We don't know how to keep ourselves afloat when we let things go. But that's where God come in at. Only He can hold us up, like His little children that we are, like His little babies that we are. You know, in Isaiah 30 and 15, it says, quietness and trust is your strength. Quietness and trust. You know, in the book, The Power of Now, you know, it's teaching me how to quiet my mind. A lot of times we go back and forth with our mind. We argue with our mind. You know, our mind, a thought comes to our mind, and we argue the thought. You know, we go back and forth with the thought. And we have to separate ourselves from our thoughts and understand that we are not our thoughts. We are three separate beings inside of one body. It's us as a spirit, which is our purest form of us. Our thoughts is the second person, and how we feel is the third person. They're all three different people, but we identify with our thoughts and our feelings more than we identify with our spirit, because our spirit is quiet and it trusts. So we take away our thoughts and ease our mind without thinking. Our spirit can talk to us and tell us what we need and what we should and shouldn't do, and disidentify with our feelings and say, that's not me. That allows to flow higher. Because when you're floating higher, your thoughts and how you feel, it can't do nothing to help you. Only in quietness and trust is your strength that allows you to float into glory to glory. And even in the Philippians 2:14-15, it says, do without grumbling and arguing. We have to get some control over our body or over going back and forth with God. 2:14. Yeah, we have to get some control of going back and forth with God, and as if things are going to change. We are His children. We are His children, and the more we argue and grumble, the more we keep ourselves at a halt, because we're going back and forth with what our spirit telling us, and then we're going back and forth with what our mind or feeling telling us, and we seem to not be able to come to a conclusion because we want to be right. We want to be once again, we want to be in control. We want to be in control. Luke 14:33. In the same way, those of you who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciples. We have to, in order to fly high, how we feel about what it is we're being told to do, or what it is our spirit is telling us to do, or what it is we fear, or what it is we can't control, or whatever it is that wants to please our ego, or whatever it is that makes us want to think about ourselves, or whatever it is that makes us be arrogant or have greed. We have to let these things go. We have to let these things go. Like I say once again, for those who travel, when you get on that plane, all that you have can't help you on that plane. Nothing you have can help you. Nothing we have can help us on that plane. Nothing. So the higher we go, the less control we have. The less control we have. Trust. So for those who fear elevation, those who just fear what you're gonna lose by elevating, fear becoming a better person, fear being in control and everything going your way. Fear not satisfying your ego. Fear the process of success. Fear letting go of your pride. For those of you all who fear, you won't go high. The higher you go in any walk of life, doesn't matter what you are doing. The higher you go in any walk of life, the more control you're gonna have to relinquish and give to God and take off your own shoulders. The more control you have to give to God and take off your own shoulders and not rely on your own understanding. Feel the pain. Feel how you feel. But understand to be high and to prosper, you cannot be in control. You cannot be in control. Let go of the things you're holding on to. Let go of the things you're holding on to that keeps you comfortable, keeps you feeling like everybody else, that keeps your ego happy, that keeps you living a false life that you don't like or don't want. Let those things go. Free your mind. Like the meditation music I played, that's what it's gonna feel like the higher you go, because it's gonna be the less static, it's gonna be the less noise inside of your head. It's gonna be the less confusion inside of you the more you depend on God, the more clear it'll get, the less frustration you will have. The less you focus on the outside world, the more the inside world is happy and at peace. And your inside world is how high you go. It's not about money, it's not about your life situation, your circumstances or nothing. It's about your inside. The more we let go, the higher we can go. We can't fear what we lose. You know, about seeing these things that make us comfortable on a daily basis. And I can say for me, and a lot of people around my age, social media and just scrolling on there, just looking at all these things, it makes us comfortable because we seeing out, it keeps us where we at. Because we feel good about knowing what's going on in everybody else's life. Who's sleeping with who's doing what, who's having a party this weekend, who's getting money, who's popping. We see all these things that hurt us, and they all in our head, and they going back and forth in our head. And if we're not at peace, all these things are subconsciously being brought into us, and they're giving birth in other ways. You see, we're not going high because we're stuck on what everybody else doing. You know, this phone can be used for good, but a lot of times we use it to stay comfortable. Because the more we have it in our hands and the more we looking at it doing stuff, the more we can take our attention off what's really going on in our real life, and which keeps us where we at. So if you want to prosper and you want to go high, understand you're going to have to let go and put everything in your life in God's hands and just do what He tell you to do, and the rest, don't even care about it. Don't even worry about it. I'm gonna end it with that. I love y'all. Donate right there, and then for the people who may watch this video, the donation link, I'm gonna put in this video. Thank y'all.